I'm dealt ace-deuce suited on the button. I open to 30. The big blind is a young kid with a stack on the shorter side who has me mistaken for someone who's going to fold to a 3-bet. He makes it 100. That's not enough. I call for 70 more. We're heads up in position. The flop comes Jack 5-3 rainbow. We've got a gutter with 1 over and a backdoor flush draw. The big blind down bets to 65. He's probably doing this with a very wide range, potentially with plenty of ace-high hands that are ahead of us. My hand is way too strong to let go for that price. I call with intentions to bluff at it at some point if I need to. The turn is the 5 of diamonds. We pick up a straight flush draw. I like that card a lot. The player slows down and checks. Doesn't have that much behind relative to the game that we're in. I told you that I was going to pay that pain forward. I do the most fun thing that I can think of, announcing that I'm
on.
The jam is for 780 effective. It's more than twice the size of the pot. When I play against people who buy in and play for a long time with substantially less than the max buy-in amount, I assume they do so because they're being cautious with their money rather than for strategic purposes. I like to put these types of people to the test, particularly when I have a monster draw. The only concern that I have is that the player could have pocket jacks. Even if that's the case, I'll just drill the 4 of diamonds. No big deal there. The player doesn't snap call, so he clearly doesn't have a boat. He doesn't snap fold either though. He could still have a hand with some value and is thinking that the shove looks fishy because it is. We're about to see if the opponent can be a hero that no one needs right now. Part of me wants to fold, part of me wants to call so I can hit an offsuit 4 and win. Actually, hitting a deuce might be enough. After 15 seconds, the player lets his cards go. We get it through. That'll teach him not to 3-bet me. Perhaps he'll do it more. Can't be sure. All I know is that this is a real-time image of both of our heart sizes. Next we have ace-deuce in the cutoff. Middle position player limps in. I raise to 20. The button calls, small blind calls, and so does the limper. We go 4 ways to the flop. It comes ace 5-5 with 2 clubs. Small blind and middle position player check. With strong aces, I'll bet, but with weak aces, I check partly for pot control, partly to gain more information from the opponents once the turn comes out, and a little bit for deception. The button checks back. I likely have the best hand. The turn is another 5. Checks to me again. Time to start going for value. I bet 30. The button and small blind call. Middle position player folds. 3 of us see the river. It's the 9 of clubs. I don't have to worry about the flush since I have a boat. Small blind checks. I bet 85 to punish the non-believers. The button folds. The small blind tanks. He does not want to get bluffed on video, so he slides in calling chips. He gets some bad news. We flip over the ace deuce. It's good enough to win it. The opponent shows that he called light with pocket 6s. Check back on the flop. It seems to have gotten us some extra value on the turn and the river. The pot is pushed towards us. The session's off to a good start. I'm having a great time with everyone, having some drinks, and playing some poker. In this one, we have ace deuce of hearts in the big blind. Under the gun +1 limps in. The button raises to 25. I call. Under the gun +1 calls. We're going 3 ways to the flop. It's jack 10-5 with 1 heart. We've got 1 over with the backdoor flush draw and 2 separate backdoor straight draws. I check. Under the gun +1 checks. The button bets 50. I flat to see what happens on the turn. If I get a card that's good for me, then I may turn my hand into a bluff. That's what it seems like I enjoy doing today anyway. Under the gun +1 folds. The turn is the 8 of diamonds. I check. The button bets 100. I actually have a big range advantage in this instance. I'm way more likely to have queen 9 or 9-7 than the opponent. I don't think this particular player will ever show up with a straight here. I can have all the 2-pair possibilities and pretty much all the set possibilities other than maybe jacks because sometimes I'll 3-bet with that pre-flop. I don't float flop bets to give up on turns that are decent cards for me. I also am in a rare mood in which I want to bluff every opportunity that I get. I put in the raise to 400. He's going to put him in a very tough position if he has a 1-pair hand, even if it's an overpair. I'll probably bomb almost all rivers if he calls. Instead he tanks for what seems like forever, then he folds. 1 more pot is pushed towards us. We're taking no prisoners today. Here we've got ace deuce suited in the cutoff. I raised to 15. The small blind 3-bets to 60. He's a young guy named Zach from Maryland who flew all the way out here just for this event. It's 45 more for us and we're in position with a suited ace. I don't mind folding, calling, or 4-betting. I call to give Zach an opportunity to make the vlog and win some of my money. We're heads up. The flop comes ace queen 9 rainbow. Pretty good for the 3-betters range. He bets 75. We can't let top pair go just yet. I call, but I don't love it. The turn is the king of spades. It's getting better and better for the 3-betters range. He jams for 465 total. I'm not going to make this mistake again, at least not within 17 minutes of making it the first time. I need at least 18 minutes to recover. I fold. Zach is nice enough to let us know what he had without making me pay for it. He shows us that he has a 2-pair hand that he shouldn't have. He 3-bet me light to make a move, and he got there.
I believe it. They always get there, whatever they need.
A few hours go by without anything too remarkable happening. Then we pick up ace-deuce suited again. I raised to 15 from under the gun +2. The cutoff calls. The button is wanting to get into some trouble. He 3-bets to 60. He was set up pretty well to go for a squeeze, and I've got good card removal. I 4-bet to 210. There are a couple good things that can happen as a result. One is that I win the pot right now. The other is that whether I win or lose, I can show that I 4-bet with a deuce in my hand, which should allow my actual strong hands to get more value when I play them aggressively. Another benefit is that if I show a willingness to 4-bet light, people will be less likely to 3-bet my opening raises. We picked a good time to make a move. Both opponents fold. It's important that we show at least one card to let them know that they just got wrecked.
We got that one through. You guys know what the other one was. 3 of clubs.
It's been a back and forth day for us. We look down at ace-deuce of clubs and are currently slightly stuck after trying to bluff into the nuts in a future full house. We're in the cutoff, and Ryan's put the double straddle on to 40. I raised to 100. The player who just got stacked with the flop straight has rebought, got a quick double up, and is currently in the small blind. He 3-bets to 340. There's 5-10 in the pot. I'm getting over 2-1 in position with the suited ace. We're in another one of these spots in which I should typically be folding ace-deuce, but ace-3 and ace-4 suited are going to be calls against a small blind 3-bet. The opponent's sizing is a lot less than 4x here too, so I can justify expanding since I'm getting a better price. I call for 240 more. We're heads up in position in what's already a big pot. The flop comes jack 6-4 with 2 clubs. We've got a draw to the nuts with 1 over and a backdoor straight draw as well. The small blind down bets at 240. I've got 1190 total in my stack, and there's 990 in the pot at the moment. If I call, the pot will be 1230 and I'll have 950 left. I'm getting a good price on a call. The problem is that if I call here, we brick turn and the opponent shoves, I'm gonna have to fold. I really like realizing my equity, so I don't like folding much, especially when I have a draw to the nuts. I also really like winning hands without making a pair. The idea comes into my head to rip it in as a semi-bluff. I can likely get all better ace-high hands to fold, maybe something like 10s and 9s as well. There aren't any hands that would be really a disaster for us to be up against if the opponent calls. Even if the small blind has pocket kings, we'll still have a 46% chance of winning. I'm in the gambling mood. Let's do this. That's right, we're all in, and there's no snap call, despite the opponent getting about 2.3 to 1 pot odds. A fold would be a huge victory for us. The opponent only needs to have 30% equity to break even by calling. It's hard to imagine he doesn't have at least that with anything that he would have 3-bet us with pre-flop, followed by a c-bet. We're definitely not up against an overpair, likely not even up against a jack. After 30 seconds, the opponent folds. We win a fairly large pot with no pair. Part of me wishes that we would have gotten called because I've got a feeling that we were going to get there. A bigger part of me that is rational is happy that the opponent laid his hand down. We're up a few hundred on the session. My 4th table of the night, I'm dealt ace-deuce of spades in the hijack. Under the gun limps in. The player on my right raises to 20. I call. The under the gun player calls as well. We go 3 ways to the flop. The dealer puts out 9-7-6 with 2 spades. We've got a flush draw and 1 over. Checks to me. I bet 40. Under the gun calls. The initial pre-flop raiser folds. It's heads up. The turn is an ace, so we make top pair. Under the gun checks. A lot of the time I'll check here. I get the sense in this instance that I'm ahead, and I can get value out of my opponent, so I bet 60. Under the gun calls. The river is a 4. We missed the flush again. That seems to be a trend for me lately. We do have a hand with value though. Under the gun surprisingly jams for 125. There's another odd line from an opponent that doesn't make much sense to me. I ended up getting it in against another opponent earlier in a similar situation and was wrong because people just always have it. I consider folding here. I can't help myself though. I call. It ends up being a good decision. The opponent is not excited to show his cards. He eventually turns over king 8 of clubs for a busted straight draw. I show the ace deuce for the win.
I guess I made the block though.
Did make the block.
The night's going pretty well for the most part. The very next hand, he has pocket 3s in middle position. He raises to 75. There's no straddle on at the moment. It's a straight 5-10-20 hand. We call for 55 more, this time with ace deuce of clubs. We're heads up out of position for the second hand in a row against the same opponent. The flop comes 7-5-4 with 2 clubs. We've got the universe. I check to the pre-flop aggressor. Slicer knows that we're going to connect with this board fairly often after calling a raise from the third blind. He has a hand with some value that he'd like to see it turn with, and he just got check raised by us, so he checks back. The dealer puts out the jack of spades. It's a blank in this instance. We've seen some weakness from the opponent. We have a hand with potential, but we're running out of opportunities to realize it. We make almost a pot-sized bet of 150 as a semi-bluff. I'd expect Slicer to fold his threes fairly often to this sizing since he could be drawing dead. Even if he's not, there aren't a lot of river cards that he's going to like seeing. A 6 gives him a straight, but it's to the low end, and he won't want to see a club. There's only one non-club 3 left in the deck as well. If he seemingly gets lucky enough to hit that, and he 6 makes a straight, ace deuce also gets there for what it's worth. It's just tough for him to call a larger turn bet than somehow make a lot of money on the river. If you disagree with my assessment, let me show you what happens if the 3 of clubs comes out, for example. Remember, this is all hypothetical. It actually took me tons of time to CGI this and make it look as real as possible. I had to consult someone from Avatar. Anyway, we see that I've made the nuts. I've got the ace high flush and a straight just in case that's not good enough. I bet 600. It's 1.3 times the size of the pot. Slicer's going to hypothetically feel obligated to snap call since he's improved the bottom set. We'll turn over the best possible hand to win a decent sized pot. We'll be up $800 after being stuck over $1,000 earlier on. That's why it's good to consider folding threes if you're ever in that situation.